From the Open Season Properties studio, welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors. Listen, Open Season Properties is a full-service real estate company with a team approach philosophy that ensures your needs are the highest priority, whether it's rural land sales, residential, or commercial properties. Open Season Properties markets and sells real estate in Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. And they're dedicated to the development of long-term client relationships and unwavering commitment to service. Go to openseasonproperties.com to learn more. Now let's turn over to my friend, Lake Pickle. You know him from Primos Outdoors on X, and he's also one of the sponsors of this show because he works also with Open Season Properties. Lake, how you doing, my friend?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. I'm fresh home. There's nothing. I love traveling, but there's nothing like being at home. There's nothing like getting a night of sleep in your own bed. So yeah, I feel great this morning. I just got back from walking the dogs.
Yeah, listen, I saw your posts along your little journey as you posted states that you were passing through, and we'll come back to that here in just a second. But tell people where you were.
Yeah, so I've spent the last week, or actually a little over a week in Montana, and that was fantastic. It's always like, if you enjoy spring and the nice weather, we all know back here at home we're drifting into summer. So to hold on to the little bit more spring that I could, some cool mornings, some crisp days, it was nice. We had a great time.
And you were with the Primos team?
I was with some of the guys I work with at Onyx, and then we were with Mossy Oak crew.
Okay, Mossy Oak crew. That's right. You said that to me. Yeah. How'd you have success?
Oh man, it was so much fun because this is such an amazing country that we live in, and I really appreciate getting to see all parts of it. And for a group of guys that enjoy spring turkey hunting as much as we know the Mossy Oak crew does, some of those guys had never been out west, had never been in Montana at all. And so to share, and some I hunted with Daniel Hayes, and Daniel and I have been friends for years. That's the first chance we've gotten to hunt together. And yeah, so the last turkey hunt of the year that I got to witness, I was sitting right next to Daniel, and man, we had been hunting this turkey for 3 mornings in a row. He had 8 or 9 hens with him, so that you couldn't do so much as far as like calling him to you. It was just a matter of getting where he wanted to go. And we snuck in the dark. And it's another thing about Montana with all these river bottoms and big open cottonwoods. You get the opportunity to see more turkeys just because it's more open. And him and I and my buddy Jared Larson, I work with Onyx, we watched this turkey strut and gobble and walk down this almost parallel cottonwood limb. And then he pitched down and landed in gun range. And Daniel watched him and let him strut for maybe a minute. And then it was more than his heart could take. And that was the end of it. But it was such an incredible hunt. It was cool to get to share that with him and Jared.
Man, I've had Daniel on the show a couple of times. In fact, he's coming up here pretty soon. His brother and dad may actually join him as well. We're going to talk about the documentary and, this wonderful documentary. Good Lord. For people who haven't seen it, what's it called? The Colonel. And what's it called? The Colonel and the
Colonel and the Fox.
And the Fox, of course, the Colonel and the Fox. His pawpaw is the Fox. And what a great documentary it is. If people haven't seen it, you can go to YouTube and look it up, The Colonel and the Fox. It will remind you about the wild turkey and how important it is to us, conservation efforts, the role that the Hayes family played in conservation of the turkey, and the Colonel himself, what he brought to the table. Good Lord, buddy. We're talking, it's big time, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, man. It's just, I've gotten to meet Colonel Tom Kelly one time. I got to look him in the eyes and shake his hand, and that was a lot for me. Just for anybody that feels the way about spring turkeys that we do, and it's one of those stories where you kind of know the lore of Mr. Fox, the lore of the Colonel, but to have that so well put together in a documentary like they did, man, I'm not gonna lie to you. When we watched it, I was at turkey camp on the river with Brad Ferris, my wife, and my uncle Robbie. And I cried like a baby watching that documentary. That's what happened.
Yeah. Hey, I don't blame you, man, because it is about commitment to conservation and what they brought to the table, what we're able to enjoy today as a result of their efforts. And, you get a sense of the National Wild Turkey Federation and how important their role is. In fact, I'll tell you, a listener heard me talking about it, and he sent me a book signed by Colonel Tom Kelly. Isn't that sweet? I'm like, man, there's some good people in this world, man.
It makes you realize really, it gives you a better perspective of what all this stuff really means. And then when you realize, I mean, like turkey numbers are definitely in the conversation today, which they should be, but to have in such well put video form, kind of where we came from and how we got to where we are. And man, I mean, there's scenes, if someone hasn't watched it, I'm not going to sit here and spoil it, because there's some scenes that they put together in there that are so powerful that take you off guard with, I mean, it's, yeah, that was so incredibly.
Hey, you know what? First, coming back to Tom Kelly real quick, and then we'll move on. But Tom Kelly, not only is he literally a walking philosopher in terms of his ability to describe, he is literally a wordsmith. But then you add that really rich Alabama accent to his pronunciations of his wisdoms. Good Lord, man. It's as good as it gets.
Yeah, that kind of like that Mobile coastal accent that I know you're very familiar with. And
I am.
Yeah, it just hearing him, I mean, like you could get the best voiceover actor in the world to read that book and it wouldn't resound like hearing him read it.
No. It is really, really good. Hey, listen, coming back to Ramsey Russell, he's coming to us from Argentina. He's been there 3 weeks. He's going to be there 10 weeks. But here's a guy that lived 6 continents, and he didn't just like visit a continent once. He's been all over the world multiple times. I should have asked him how many times he's been around the world. But he's quick to point out that he hasn't lost his Mississippi Delta roots. In fact, if I think of it, all you guys who've had the opportunity to travel all over the United States, you haven't lost your roots either. But to have someone like Ramsey out there speaking for Mississippi, projecting what Mississippians are all about, we're lucky to have people like him, aren't we?
Every good articulate steward that we have to talk about what we care about and what we have here they're invaluable. And Ramsey definitely falls into that category. He does such a good job. And like I said, because of the experiences that he's had in traveling not only the country, but the world, and then to just express how much this place means to him. That's wow.
Well, I talked at the beginning of the show about the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission had their first meeting last week since they were down to 4 members, and it was very smooth. The meeting went really smoothly. And you and I, we're going to be talking a lot more about this. We're even talking about putting out some content as it relates to this, but this whole notion of why it matters, Ramsey and I talked about it, and I think the governor probably is more locked onto it. You heard a little bit about what we're talking about, this multi-billion-dollar industry that we've got to be more serious about. But at the end of the day, we've got to manage it with integrity. We've got to protect the public trust. And we've got to bring the focus back. And I use Billy Munger as an example, the kind of commissioner we want to see there. But I want to say thank you to you, because you weighed in, and like me, you took some hits. But at the end of the day, when you're right, when you have what's best for the public good at heart, you can't fail, man. You just can't fail. And you never wavered in your support of what we needed to do in terms of embracing the future. And I appreciate you doing that.
Well, I mean, thank you. But I mean, I would have to say I would feel misrepresentative if I didn't say a lot of me, saying what I said on these topics came from you encouraging me, and when I say you encouraging me, I mean what you do on this show and the things that you bring to light. It's like you and I have talked and said, I realized by listening to your show and coming on your show, it's like, I need to do a better job of being in tune with what's going on in the natural resources of my own state, because it is so important to me.
Yeah. Well, what it's done for you, man, is it's changed the nature of the conversation that you have with people from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. I don't want to say you care more, because you always cared, but maybe you're expressing how you care more deeply with them, And so I think about people that you come in contact with, people like Adam, and he's he's so important to what we're doing on the turkey side of things. But then he's not alone. But it hasn't it? I mean, it's really enriched your conversations.
Absolutely. I think about, so Adam and I worked together on a event this past February that we called a Game Bird Weekend. And what we were trying to do is get a bunch of private landowners throughout the state and give them an opportunity to get like a hands-on workshop on how to manage for game birds, turkeys, quail, all that stuff. And we were talking about just how important that was and how much faith we put in our own hunting community to attend an event like that because they care. You just got to give them the avenues to do that.
Yeah. That's Adam Butler we're talking about, who's head of the wild turkey program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And he's one of many just like him who are so dedicated and deserve our support because they're doing great work on the ground. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll talk about the frustration around how legislation like a wild turkey stamp can't get across the finish line at the last minute. We got to do better. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Open Season Property Studio. Appreciate you joining us here on Super Talk Outdoors. Are you looking to purchase your perfect piece of hunting property, upgrade your farm equipment, or have you been dreaming of owning your slice of heaven out in the country? Look no further than Mississippi Land Bank for your financing needs. For more than 100 years, farming families and landowners in North Mississippi have turned to Mississippi Land Bank for all kinds of financial solutions, whether it's for land, equipment, or livestock. For more information, visit mslandbank.com or go by and see one of the friendly staff at any of their offices. But just like some of my friends did recently and bought some beautiful ground, and the Mississippi Land Bank helped them acquire the funds. Okay, let's get back to my friend Lake Pickle. Lake, listen, you watched as I did. We had a bill in the Senate and a bill in the House, identical bill, lots of hard work by lots of people pushing that bill forward to create a wild turkey stamp for Mississippi. And it would have meant about $2 million right off the bat, best estimate, for Mississippi for conservation in the wild turkey arena. But for some silly reason, I think it was a little bit of politics and ego. I don't know why. I'm trying to get Bill Kincaid and Senator Neil Whaley, Bill Kincaid, the House Wildlife Chairman, and Neil Whaley, the Senate Chairman, to give me some background on what the heck happened. How does a bill with so many people working so hard die literally at the moment it's about to go across this finish line? My statement from that is that we've just got to do better in cases like that. But then we just got to get everybody a little bit more aligned around, especially in the legislature, wildlife and conservation issues. We just can't let things like that, fall off the radar screen. I know it was a busy session, but we got to have people. That's why we have chairmen of these wildlife committee to make sure these things don't happen. But it's frustrating to watch that, isn't it?
It's disappointing. And part of the reason is like we were talking about before we took a break. I have all of the faith in the general hunting community. So I know, I mean, I would say I would put I would bet the house that the hunting community would get behind it.
Yeah.
Hard stop. They would be behind a turkey stamp. So the fact that it got real close to the finish line and then died because of politics, who knows what, it is very disappointing.
Yeah, I talked to Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. We had an hour visit on my show last week, and offline we talked a little bit about it, and he's certain that it will happen next year. But at the end of the day, it should have happened this year. That's it. It's not like, again, the bills were identical, absolutely identical. There's no reason this shouldn't have gotten across the finish line. But look, there are all kinds of things. Like a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, there was a bill that went through and somebody made this last minute change to it that said if you find chronic wasting disease inside a high fence, the land around the high fence is not put into a CWD zone. Think about that for a second. And that's because there was some conflict, some special interest that had some involvement. That needs to be fixed big time, by the way. There was a trespassing bill this year that, trespassing bills, everybody, who's not going to support a trespassing bill, but somebody slipped in at the last minute that you would pay restitution if an animal is killed on your property, you pay restitution to the landowner. But see, that animal doesn't belong to the landowner. It belongs to us. Now, if the restitution was paid to the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, that's fine. So that's going to have to be fixed. I mean, it's an issue of the public trust, and we can't be passing bills that suggest that people own the wildlife. That's just not the way this works. Mm-hmm. But again, we just got to pay closer attention, and whether we've had a lot of success. We've had a lot of success, and we're going to have more success going forward. We just got to pay more attention, don't we?
Yeah, honestly, it reminds me a little bit of the trust fund, because it was one of those deals, like when that first came up, to me, it's like, well, that's a no-brainer, and so I was kind of looking, and probably not me alone, but just when I saw the turkey stamp thing come up, I was like, oh, well, this is a layup. This is just obviously going to go through. Turns out it didn't. So where my head is at is, the next time this comes around and it's on the table again, like, what in the world can I do to help get that thing through? Because it's such a needed thing. It would be such a helpful thing. I mean, everyone in this state right now, just talking about Mississippi, everyone in this state that has any interest in wild turkeys has raised an eyebrow at population numbers. What can we do better? And so you look at something so clearly obvious that would do nothing but help.
Yeah.
That's something that we need to pass. And so that's where my head's at. I'm like, okay, what can I do the next go around? Let me not look at this as a layup and realize, okay, this is something that for whatever reason, we're going to have to put a little bit more work into to get across the table. And whatever that is, I'm willing to do.
Hey, listen, there was a speaker at the last meeting about reinstating the fall turkey season only on private land. You're not in favor of a fall turkey season, are you?
That is such an asinine idea. It's such a bad idea.
Well, but again, this is why, look, it's fine for people to bring such proposals out there because they might have enjoyed the fall turkey season. But the reality is, we all have a voice, and the commission at the end of the day is going to make decisions based on what's best for the public good. So hopefully we'll get focused on that one. I think one of the proposals they're thinking about is reducing the bag limit for people who hunt from out state from 3 to back to 1. That would be terrific. I think that's a great idea, because we've got to get the pressure off of our wildlife. Lake Pickle, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Have a great day. And as I always end every show, stay safe when you're in the outdoors. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday. God bless you.